a toll on everyone, they say. Time is merciless, it won't wait for us to change. Time, I am stressing out, I can't figure out what to say. Oh, time, just give us time. Time, looking back on pictures, and I find it hard to see you and myself in places where we used.
Hello viewers, good morning, good afternoon and a good evening from wherever you are watching us from. My name is Hanipher for all of you who are new here, and I am here yet with another episode of your Rights and the Law show here at the UNN TV. Thank you for always coming back, and thank you for always watching. Plus, thank you for always sharing this video with anyone who you think might be interested in this video or might benefit from this information being shared. I truly feel for, or my heart breaks for people who are down there in Uganda during this unplanned, very chaotic second lockdown, with no permanent solutions in place. The government has completely done nothing, literally nothing, to try to contain the virus. Or Uganda had a full year actually. There was that all kind of space to prepare in case there is a second spread, in case, you know, we had a full year, but the government did nothing. The stupid government officials and all they did was eat all the monies which were donated and monies which were borrowed. And then look where we are. The ordinary person, the ordinary citizen, you know, how are they going to survive during this second lockdown? I truly don't know how heartless these people can get, you know. But the good thing is the virus does not discriminate. It doesn't say you are rich, you are a government official, or you are an ordinary citizen. It will get you, and then you also still have to suffer that there is no beds, there is no oxygen. But for anyone out there in Uganda, we have you in our prayers. Actually, where I am right now, we are coming out of our fourth lockdown, but the government here has done everything necessary to try contain the virus. And also the government has this saying, we are in this together. So you feel that like there's gonna be support. Stay at home, we're gonna give you support. Don't get me wrong, or don't ask me questions like you are in a developed country. Yes, indeed I am in a developed country. However, what stops our countries from being developed? It's not written anywhere, you know, that Uganda is going to be an underdeveloped country, but because our leaders are so stupid, they are so heartless, and they are very selfish, that we are going to be, you know, in this kind of hopeless situations as developing countries. So this is really, it hurts actually. I should say that's the right thing, it hurts. But wherever you are, you know, you are on this on your own. Stay safe, sanitize, wear your face mask, and, you know, do all things necessary to protect yourself. So moving on, many years ago, as I was going through high school, I was fortunate enough to do my office practice with one of these very incredible lawyers. I was interested in the law, and I went to do my office practice with this lawyer who was a very down to earth, very someone who was always giving back to the community, in a sense that they were running a free women's legal clinic where they were helping women, specifically women, with all their legal issues, say divorce, property settlement, domestic violence, and lots of other legal problems. I found this to be very fascinating. So one time I was having a conversation with this lawyer, and I asked them what draws them to, you know, step away from the very busy legal schedule, like every second Wednesday, to come and do this pro bono or free legal services to women. So this lawyer mentioned that For every woman you help, you're helping lots of women behind this woman, rather lots of people behind this woman. You will see her as just the one person, but there are lots of people who are benefiting from the legal services they are getting. This really resonated so much with me, and I promised myself that one time, if I ever went back to law school, or if I ever went to law school, I will be practicing human rights law, or I'll study about human rights law. But life happened, and I ventured into a very different, side of the law. That brings us to today's show, which is human rights. So by now we know about today's topic, which is going to be about human rights. So we shall be exploring what human rights are. Are they really human rights in Uganda? How are they protected? What's the government or those in power doing to protect human rights, and so on and so forth. So to start with, human rights have been constantly evolving throughout human history. They have been tied to laws, customs, and religions throughout ages. Their standards change with or according to human needs and interests. Human rights are actually not a recent innovation, because ideas about rights and responsibilities have been an important part of all societies throughout history. Since the Second World War, there has been a united effort by nations of the world to decide what rights belong to all the people and how they can best be promoted and protected. On the other hand, human rights law has foundations in the notions of natural rights developed by classical Greek philosophers such as Aristotle. Human rights law has roots in natural law. I'll come back to explain that when time permits, where scholars like Thomas Aquinas in Summa Theologica stated that there are behaviors that are naturally right or wrong because God ordained it to be so. What was naturally right could be ascertained by humans by right reason of thinking properly. So as I move on, at both the international and local level, there are treaties, there are covenants, there are declarations, there are principles and standards. All these are for the protection of human rights. Some of these are binding and some are non-binding. So the binding ones are we have the treaties, we have the conventions, and so on and so forth. And the non-binding ones, we have the principles and standards. At the local level, which I would say like the country level, we have human rights organizations and laws which all aim still to promoting human rights. So every human being has rights, correct? They are the rights that everyone enjoys as a virtue of life. For example, the Internet Encyclopedia Philosophy defines human rights as the basic moral guarantees that people in all countries and cultures have simply because they are people. In other words, human rights are the basic, or human rights, in other words, human rights are the rights human beings enjoy because they are human beings. Because you're a human being, guaranteed you have these rights. Human rights are a basic need that all humans must enjoy in order to have a meaningful life. So meaningful life is very subjective, but that is the international standard. Human rights ensure that people can freely and that they can reach their fullest potential, participate, and contribute to society. All human beings must be treated fairly and with dignity and with respect, because respect for human rights is a very, very essential feature of constitutional democracy, and Uganda is considered a democratic country. So why are human rights important, and they're gonna take on human rights? In Uganda, human rights are provided for in the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda under Chapter 4, which is named Human Rights and Freedoms. The protection of human rights in Uganda draws its inspiration from the civil rights movement that started at the end during the Second World War, and it led to the adoption of the the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations General Assembly in 1948. The values of tolerance, equality, and respect can reduce friction within society. Putting human rights ideas into practice can help us create that kind of society, that we all want to live in. In recent decades, there has been a tremendous growth in how we think about and apply human rights ideas. This has had many positive results in that knowledge about human rights can empower individuals in a democratic society and offer solutions for specific problems. Human rights are important part of how people interact with each other at all levels of society, in the family, the community, in schools, in the workplace, in politics, and international relations. It is therefore very vital that we should all strive to understand what human rights are. When people understand what human rights are, it is easy for them to protect justice and then also the well-being of the society. Human rights protect us against the actions of those in power or those who have power over us. For example, the police, the military, the governments, and so on and so forth. And the human rights also help us create a world in which we can all reach our fullest potential as human beings. We are entitled to have our human rights protected and promoted simply because we are human beings who deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. This means that your race or sex or ethnicity origin, color or religion, or any other status, we are all human beings who are entitled to human rights. There are 3 core principles of human rights that describe how human rights work and how human rights apply. The first core principle is the principle of inalienable or inalienable. That is the word. The word gives me trouble, which means that our rights will apply to us simply because we are human beings. They cannot be taken away from us by anybody, not even by those in power. Our rights cannot change even when our life circumstances change. The second core principle is the principle of interdependency. This simply means that human rights come as a full package, that the protection of some rights depend on the protection of the other rights. For example, a person cannot be denied health care and hope that the life to life can be granted. These two work hand in hand. On the other hand, our human rights support one another and strengthen one another. The other core principle is the principle of equality and non-discrimination, which simply means that every person enjoys the same set of rights. The rights apply equally to everybody, regardless of your social or economical background. Like I said earlier, the Ugandan Constitution the Ugandan Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and it grants for human rights. One of the important part of the Ugandan Constitution, as far as an ordinary person is concerned, is the Bill of Rights, which is under Chapter 4, like we've seen earlier. This chapter embodies the rights that are to be respected by all authorities, the state, and the individuals. This whole chapter is dedicated to human rights, and it outlines different groups of human rights. First of all, it gives a number of basic rights which include the right to equality before the law, and the right to life, and the right to human dignity. Chapter 4 of the Constitution goes on to talk about the civil rights, which are the rights a person or an individual has as a member of a society, state, or nation. So they are the rights citizens enjoy because they are citizens of Uganda. The civil rights also include freedom of religion, freedom of belief and opinion, and freedom of expression. Then further, this chapter has talks about political rights, or outlines political rights, which include citizens' right to make political choices, such as forming or campaigning for a political party, and the right to vote in a free and fair elections. I don't know why I'm laughing, but free and fair elections. What is special about the Bill of Rights in Uganda is it focuses on the socio-economic rights. For example, the right to housing, the right to education, the right to health care, the right to food, water, and the right to social security. Not all countries commit themselves to these rights. These rights place a special duty onto this special duty and responsibility to the government, and this is in the Ugandan perspective. This chapter places this responsibility to the government of Uganda. So you are entitled to this by the Constitution. There are different groups of human rights under the Bill of Rights in Chapter 4. The bill requires the government to respect, promote, and fulfill these constitutionally granted rights. So human rights not only talk about, are supposed to be observed by the government, but also citizens, where citizens not only have rights but obligations too. The same values that protect us to guide citizens on how to treat one another in the society. As a citizen, you have the responsibility to protect these rights at all times. For example, even if we do not like another person, it is our duty to respect his or her rights, right? This can easily be shown when we think about the basic rights. For example, the right to basic education, which essentially means that you are free to go to school, but also means that you cannot prevent or stop anybody from going to school. But this has actually been done in Uganda as I speak. The Bill of Rights also applies to relations between individuals, the government, and other institutions. Human rights are important because human rights are a central feature of any constitutional democracy, like we've seen, and Uganda is perceived or carries itself as a constitutional, rather a democratic country. We move on to the failed state of human rights in Uganda. Like in the previous episode, we've talked about the constitution. Uganda has a constitution which has truly suppressed the ordinary individual and has given the rulers absolute and lots of powers. It is a shame that the Ugandan Constitution dedicates a full chapter to human rights, like we've seen. Chapter 4, if you opened it, is dedicating to human rights, but nothing mentioned under this chapter applies in Uganda or has been observed in Ugandan terms. Many human rights organizations are present and active and have again and again condemned human rights violation in this country, like the killings, the murders, abductions, and all lots of things. Because the head of the country is the law himself, all these recommendations and condemnations fall on deaf ears. It's more like, what are you talking about? Human rights are grossly violated, and such violations are directly attributed to the government, no question. The law provides for several agencies to investigate, inquire into, and prosecute human rights violations like the unlawful killings by the security forces. However, it is evident that these agencies were largely ineffective. The Constitution established by the Republic of Uganda, it established the Uganda Human Rights Commission, that is the UNHCR, to investigate any person or group of persons for violation of human rights. But all this is merely said. Reports were written, violations still continue. So literally, these are things on paper, Human rights are inherent and are not accorded by the state. That is why individuals enjoy enjoyment of human rights is not limited to what is provided for in the Constitution. The notion of human rights goes beyond the violation that we see currently. As the world evolves, new violations come up, and that may not necessarily be provided for in the Constitution. The lack of express protection of certain human rights is used as an excuse to commit the gross violation of human rights in Uganda. Fellow Ugandans, it is our time to protect our human rights. It is now that we revolt to oust the bloody regime, the bloody angry regime. For a gentle reminder, the Constitution provides for all these rights, but nothing has basically been done. Nothing has stopped the Ugandan government, security forces from violating these rights. For example, the right to life, where people are turning up to hospitals and there is no oxygen, they end up dying, so the right to life is violated there and then. So I call upon you people, we stand up. The time is now. There's no other time. It's today. It is now that we do something. Otherwise, we're going to continue dropping dead in hospitals, being shot by, security organizations, being done all the unthinkable things that a fellow human being can ever do to another human being. Thank you for watching, and thank you for staying until the end. For any feedback, you can leave in the comment sections below. You can also email us at hello@getunn.com. Thank you very much for watching. Until next Sunday, have a good morning, a good evening, or a good afternoon. Ciao.